Hey there, sleepless rabble. Whether you're here to fall asleep or just to give your poor eyes a break from scrolling, you're in the right place. Tonight we're talking Labubu, the ugly cute goblin plush with a grin that looks like a geometry accident, and a resale market that makes housing prices look polite. For some, it's a creepy gremlin haunting TikTok. For others, it's a collector's grail. Either way, it's not just a toy, it's folklore in real time. Think of this as a cultural bedtime story. For the boomers, an explanation of why people are queuing in the rain for plastic. Or for our younger crowd, the full syllabus on how hype, fear, and FOMO build a modern myth. So, let me take over for a while. You don't need to scroll, you don't even need to look. Just listen. We'll unpack why queues feel like pilgrimages, why blind boxes feel like destiny, and why some people swear their goblin giggled in the dark. And hey, before we dive in, drop a like if you've ever panic bought something ridiculous. Hit subscribe if you want more folklore meets feed therapy. And if you want to support me keeping the lights on here at Napmax, you can do that at kofeed.com/napmax. And here's tonight's comment question. What's the strangest thing you ever queued up or overpaid for? And did it live up to the hype? This is Napmax, the channel where we tell you ghost stories, history stories, and hype stories. Not just for sleep, but for anyone who needs a pause from the screen. Let's start with something simple. Imagine drawing a face with your finger on a foggy window. One circle, two dots, one line. That's it. Primitive, awkward, but instantly readable. That's the secret sauce of Labubu. It's not about beauty, it's about recognizability. This creature doesn't care about symmetry or elegance. It's got a grin that looks like a geometry mistake, ears that belong on a radio tower, and eyes that hover somewhere between mischief and mild food poisoning. And yet, you know it the second you see it. At 3 meters or 3 pixels, that's the magic. Ugly cute isn't an accident, it's a strategy. Humans share what sticks, not what stuns. If your mum can recognize it without squinting, congratulations. You've just created a meme-ready silhouette. Think about it. Every great icon, from Mickey Mouse to Hello Kitty, follows the same rule. Labubu just cranks the weirdness up a notch. And yes, that makes it perfect for the internet. Because online, the double take beats the slow gaze. The odd, the awkward, the slightly grotesque. It photobombs your attention while you blink. And in an economy where attention is the only real currency, that's gold. Modern art test? If I describe it to my gran and she still recognizes it, that's brand equity. So when people say, why is this creepy goblin thing everywhere? The answer is simple. Because it can be drawn with one finger on a fogged up window. Easy to draw means easy to share. Easy to share means it's already halfway to folklore. And with folklore comes ritual. And with ritual comes the queue. People don't just buy a Labubu. They buy the moment of waiting for a Labubu. Because nothing screams, this is worth it. Like standing in a line that wraps around the block, pretending your bladder is fine. A queue is basically social proof in 3D. If they're waiting, it must be good. Each beep from the vending machine feels like a church bell announcing the next tiny miracle. The drawer slides open, everyone leans forward, and for a heartbeat, the street becomes a shrine. And honestly, the line itself is the show. Early birds clutch coffee cups like survival gear. Mid-morning optimists turn up with tote bags and strong opinions about which colorway is actually superior. By lunchtime, tourists arrive to film the queue like you are the attraction. And by late afternoon, The survivors form a support group, half bonding, half quietly refreshing the resale app they swore they didn't need. Then comes the sound, that vending machine beep. Pavlov would have subscribed. It's the tiniest audio cue, but your brain throws confetti every time it hears it. That's the noise that launched 1,000 reels, the soundtrack of hype itself. And the best part? Even if you don't record the moment, your brain does. The suspense, the ritual, the little gasp when someone finally scores the rare one. It sticks. It's story fuel. Because let's face it, people don't queue for toys. They queue for belonging. They queue for folklore. And folklore, like any good religion, always comes with relics. Here's the thing about blind boxes. They're not just packaging. They're prophecy. Every time you slide a coin in or click buy, you're basically saying, universe, surprise me. And the universe, being a bit of a comedian, usually answers, sure, here's another common one. Enjoy your duplicate. But that's the point. Not knowing what's inside, that tiny suspense, is catnip for the midbrain. Each box is a little fortune cookie. Will you pull the one that makes your friends gasp, or the one that makes you sigh and shove it into a drawer marked trade pile? Either way, your heart still skipped a beat before the reveal. It's the slot machine mechanic, repackaged for people with shelves instead of casinos. Nobody loses their house over it. Well, unless your house runs out of storage space. But nobody talks about that part. And online, blind boxes become theatre. Someone sets up their desk like a stage, clean lighting, one camera angle, hands trembling just enough to sell the suspense. They peel back the wrapper like they're unsealing a cursed scroll, and thousands of viewers collectively hold their breath. Will it be the rare chase figure? Will it be yet another duplicate with a smile that looks like dental malpractice? The crowd doesn't care. The drama is the product. That's why unboxing videos do numbers. Watch time isn't about the toy. It's about the pause before the toy. It's the collective inhale. The millisecond of what if multiplied across millions of screens. And when the reveal finally happens, half the audience cheers, half groans, and everyone scrolls to the comments to type, same. The truth is, we already live our lives like blind boxes. Think about it. Opening the fridge for the 4th time, hoping a new snack has magically spawned, that's a blind box. Swiping on dating apps, definitely a blind box with worse packaging. Even emails, you hit refresh, praying for good news, and instead you get your package has shipped from a company you don't remember ordering from. Congratulations, micro destiny. And that's the genius of the design. It doesn't matter if you get the figure you want. What matters is that you'll try again, and again. Because humans don't just collect objects, they collect suspense. We hoard the feeling of maybe this time. Of course, the toy companies know this. That's why the shelves never stop filling, the designs never stop mutating, and the limited editions keep multiplying like particularly smug rabbits. And once the box is open, once the mystery is gone, the magic shrinks. That's why the hype never ends with the unboxing. It feeds straight into the next round, the next drop, the next excuse to queue in the rain with coffee and tote bags. But here's the twist. It's not just what's inside the box that matters. It's how strange, how offbeat, how ugly cute the thing inside looks once it's out. Because the internet doesn't reward perfection. It rewards the double take. And that's where Labubu shines. The internet has a type. And no, it's not perfect symmetry or classical beauty. The internet's real crush is ugly cute. The kind of face that makes you flinch for half a second. And then laugh. Labubu lives right there, in that sweet spot between adorable and alarming. The teeth? Too many. The grin, too wide. The ears, either satellite dishes or a cry for help from the sculptor's wrist. By every traditional standard, it shouldn't work. And yet, it works brilliantly. Here's why. The double take. Your brain is scrolling, half asleep, surrounded by cat videos, coffee ads, and whatever your aunt just shared about essential oils. Suddenly, bam! A goblin plush with a haunted smile pops into frame. You blink, maybe wince, and before you know it, you've already shared it with a caption like, "What fresh hell is this?" That reaction is the algorithm's love language, because the platforms don't care if you adore it or hate it. They care that you noticed. They care that you stopped. And Labubu is built to make you stop. Think of other mascots burned into the collective brain. Pikachu, Hello Kitty, Mickey Mouse. Simple outlines, bold shapes, recognizable at a glance. Labubu follows the same formula, but it adds a streak of grotesque. Like someone put Hello Kitty in a blender with a B-movie villain. That's what makes it viral. Ugly cute is efficient. Pretty things blend in. Weird things stand out. Online, recognizability pays rent, not beauty. That's why a plush goblin is outpacing actual human influencers. It can photobomb your feed harder than a Kardashian wedding. And here's the kicker. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. It's like spotting a face in a plug socket. Pareidolia meets merchandising. Your brain will keep looking for it everywhere, even in shadows, even in clouds, which means the brand wins every single time. So no, it's not about whether Labubu is beautiful. It's about whether it can invade your attention while you blink. And on that battlefield, ugly cute is a weapon of mass distribution. But of course, just being weird isn't enough. Weird needs fuel. And in the hype economy, that fuel is scarcity. Here's the thing about hype. It's not just about the toy or the design or the haunted little grin. Hype is choreography. And the dance always begins with scarcity. Scarcity is the oldest trick in the marketing spellbook. You limit supply, and suddenly people who didn't even want the thing are clawing at each other to prove they deserve it. Humans can live without oxygen for about 3 minutes, without water for 3 days, and without a limited drop for, maybe 3 hours. After that, FOMO takes the wheel. Think about how these drops are staged. There's always an announcement, vague, dramatic, perfectly timed to land at 10 p.m. in one time zone and 4 a.m. in another. Just inconvenient enough to make you feel like you're working for it. The clock ticks down, the site groans under the weight of 1,000 refresh buttons, and then, poof, it sells out before you have even managed to type in your card details. And in that moment, something wild happens. Disappointment turns into desire. You didn't get one? Now you want one twice as badly. Your brain, ever the drama queen, rewrites the narrative. This wasn't just a plush. This was the plush. The one that slipped away. And of course, scarcity breeds ritual. The queue outside the robo shop becomes part of the lore. The screenshots of failed checkout pages become badges of honor. Even the resale market, inflated to ridiculous heights, feeds the myth. You didn't just miss a toy, you missed an opportunity. Which is why people who swear they'll never pay those prices somehow end up wiring money to a reseller called toygoblin_1998. It's a vicious cycle, but a beautifully engineered one. Drop, queue, unboxing, shares, demand, next drop. That's not a supply chain, that's choreography. That's the drop dance. And you know what the dance really sells? Not toys, not plastic, not even folklore. It sells momentum. Because feelings feed feeds. Feeds feed feelings. And round it goes until your ugly cute goblin plush has turned into a cultural weather system. But once momentum is rolling, something strange always creeps in. When a story hums loudly enough, folklore shows up like it was invited. And with folklore comes fear. Once hype reaches a certain altitude, folklore sneaks in through the side door, and folklore always brings its little brother, fear. Enter the 7-second viral horror clip. You've seen them. Shaky phone video of a dark corridor, a toy slumped in the corner, captioned with something like, "I swear I heard it giggle." 7 seconds of terror, perfectly engineered for your feed. The formula is simple and diabolical. Low light? Check. Camera shaking like the operator just ran a marathon? Check. A suspiciously vague sound effect. Maybe a creak, maybe a whisper? Perfect. The brain does the rest. And that's the beauty of it. Because the human imagination is cheaper than CGI and 10 times scarier. Think about it. If the lights are on and the microphone is crisp, you're watching an interview. If the lights are off and the audio is garbage, suddenly you're convinced a goblin is about to crawl out of the sock drawer. Bad lighting equals instant haunting. Of course, the props make it worse. Labubu already looks like it crawled out of an uncanny valley that no one bothered to pave. Put it in the corner of a dimly lit bedroom, let the shadows play tricks on the grin, and congratulations. You've just built yourself a poltergeist for under 30 quid. And the captions? Oh, the captions are half the horror. My friend bought this and now strange things keep happening. Or, at 3 a.m, the toy moved by itself. No evidence required. Just a bold claim in white text over grainy footage. The internet doesn't need proof. It needs vibes. The scariest part? Your brain happily fills in the blanks. That blurry shape in the background? Definitely moving. That weird static pop on the audio? Probably a ghost trying to connect to the Wi-Fi. You don't just watch the video. You participate in it. You lend it your imagination, which is far more generous with horror than any special effects budget. And suddenly, the ugly cute plush becomes something else. Not a toy, not a collectible, an object with a presence. Something that feels bigger than plastic. A folk demon with 9 teeth and a resale value. That's how stories spread. Not through evidence, but through adrenaline. One shaky clip, 7 seconds long, and boom, you've got a haunting. Or at least a hashtag pretending to be one. And once the haunting vibe takes hold, it needs a label. Because nothing sticks in folklore until you give it a name. Folklore hates loose ends. A creepy story without a name, it fizzles out. But slap a demon's name on it, and suddenly it feels ancient, dangerous, maybe even a little glamorous. That's why Labubu didn't just get called weird or uncanny. People reached for the heavy hitters. Paimon, Asmodeus, Buer, Take Paimon. For centuries, just a name in a dusty grimoire, one of the 72 demons catalogued in the Ars Goetia. A king of hell, said to ride a camel, trumpets blaring, voice like an earthquake. Not exactly bedtime material. Then came Hereditary, and suddenly Paimon became pop culture shorthand for very bad news. So when TikTok commenters saw that grinning plush with its too many teeth, boom, the dots connected. That's Paimon. One line, instant folklore, or Asmodeus, the chaos specialist. In the Book of Tobit, he kills husbands out of spite. In later lore, he's tied to lust, wrath, pride. Across history, he pops up in plays, novels, TV shows, always a familiar face in the demonic lineup. Stick his name under a shaky Labubu clip, and you've upgraded a vinyl toy into an infernal relic. And for the occult nerds, there's Buer, drawn in 1577 as a lion's head with 5 goat legs sticking out in a circle. Ridiculous to modernize, but deadly serious to the medievals. Drop Buer into a comment section, and suddenly Labubu's strange silhouette feels like it has a pedigree older than Shakespeare. That's the shortcut. You don't have to explain why it's creepy. You just outsource the fear to a name. Names are cultural USB sticks. Plug them in, and all the stored horror boots up instantly. But here's where it gets juicier. The names didn't just stay in the comments. Soon, the videos arrived. Haunted toy reports. Clips of Labubus supposedly moving on their own. One slumped in the corner, then, mysteriously, on the other side of the room. Another filmed at night. A shaky whisper. I heard it giggle. Captions like, "Ever since I bought this, strange things keep happening." Were they serious? Mostly not. This was TikTok horror theatre. Dark lighting, bad audio, perfect vibes. But here's the thing. Once enough people play along, irony hardens into folklore. Some watchers laughed, some got spooked, and a few whispered, "What if?" That's how it spreads. The reports had patterns, toys that fell from shelves, shadows that moved behind them. Owners swearing the grin looked wider in the morning than it had at night. Half joke, half urban legend, fully viral. And that's the only truly exciting part of the Labubu saga. Not the resale prices, not the queues, but the sudden collision of pop demonology and mass-produced plastic. For a hot minute, collectors weren't just trading figurines, they were trading ghost stories. Of course, no one really believes Paimon is hiding in a PVC gremlin, but folklore doesn't care about belief. Folklore cares about attention. And attention was exactly what those haunted toy reports delivered. Which means the plush was never the thing possessed. The feed was. Here's the delicate part. Once a toy has been declared demon-haunted, you've basically got two kinds of people in the room. On one side, the jokers who are in it for the memes. On the other, the genuinely spooked. The ones staring at the goblin on their shelf a little too long at night. If you're going to debunk, you can't just bulldoze both groups with, "It's just plastic, you idiots." That only makes the story stronger. Folklore thrives on mockery. It feeds off the friction. Tell someone, "That's stupid." And congratulations, you've just handed the demon a protein shake. So what's the smarter move? Start with facts. Track the design back to the artist. Show their sketches, their stated intent. This is what it's meant to be. A trickster. Ugly cute by design, not by devilish accident. That's far more effective than sneering. Second step. Highlight the storytelling mechanics. Explain that shaky camera and bad lighting are horror tropes, older than your nan's wallpaper. Point out how captions like "I heard it laugh" are classic campfire formula repackaged for TikTok. You're not killing the fun, you're showing the seams in the magic trick. And crucially, avoid humiliating the people who are scared. Fear is a social technology. It bonds communities. Laughing at someone's goosebumps just drives them deeper into the haunted corner of the internet. What you want is not a comment war. You want to starve the story of oxygen. Because attention is calories, remember? Every rage stitch, every debunk with contempt, is still a donation to the hype. The most effective exorcism isn't holy water, it's boredom. So the real goal isn't to win, it's to withdraw. Not to dunk on someone in the comments, but to let the thing wither without your attention. A demon can't haunt you if you never open the door. And in this case, the door is your feed. So far, we've been laughing about haunted goblins and demon names. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The real horror story in this whole saga isn't folklore. It's counterfeits. Because while TikTok jokes about possession, factories somewhere are quietly pumping out knockoffs with all the care of a dodgy back alley dentist. And those are actually dangerous. Here's the problem with fake toys. Safety standards vanish. That adorable grin may be hiding brittle plastic that snaps where it shouldn't. Sharp edges that cut tiny fingers, or paint jobs using the kind of chemicals that make your flat smell like a garage fire. Suddenly, haunted makes sense, not by demons, but by liability lawyers. Collectors already know the drill. If something feels off, it usually is. The packaging is just a little too glossy, the tag misspells the brand, the price sounds like it fell out of a wish. But the casual buyer, the one who just saw a viral clip and thought, cute, I'll grab one for my kid. They're the ones at risk. For them, the jump scare isn't a TikTok caption. It's the plastic snapping in their hands. And yes, the real figures aren't exactly built like medieval reliquaries, but they at least pass the basic checks. There are branding marks, QR codes, UV stamps, little boring details that prove someone somewhere did the paperwork. Fakes don't bother. They just want to ride the hype wave until it crashes. Think about how surreal this is. On one side, you've got teens whispering Paimon into their phones. On the other, you've got counterfeit factories in the Pearl River Delta, churning out plush goblins that might actually hurt you. One is folklore. The other is malpractice. Which one's scarier? It's almost poetic. We invent demons because they feel more entertaining than reality. But reality, the factory floor, the unregulated paint, the dodgy resellers, is the demon that actually leaves marks. And if you want a quick tell, count the teeth. Real Labubus have 9. If yours has 8, or 10, or a row that looks like it was glued on in a rush, don't call a priest. Call a refund. That's the true possession story. Hype so hot it attracts parasites. For every authentic figure born out of careful design, there's a counterfeit lurking in the shadows, waiting to cash in on your fear of missing out. So maybe, just maybe, the next time someone tells you their Labubu is haunted, you should ask a simpler question. Where did you buy it? Because demons may not be real, but knockoffs definitely are. By now, you've heard the spooky stories, the demon names, the haunted clips, the counterfeit warnings. It's enough to make a person wonder whether buying a toy requires sage, salt, and a minor exorcism. The good news? It doesn't. What it does require is something far scarier to the internet. Common sense. Rule number 1. Buy from official channels. That means licensed retailers, trusted websites, shops that actually exist outside of a Telegram chat. If the listing looks like it was written by a bot that just discovered English yesterday, dear friend, very authentic goblin, please trust, maybe don't. Rule number 2, beware of mystery links. That too good to be true deal from a seller with 0 feedback. That's not a bargain. That's a horror short waiting to happen. If a deal looks like it wants to be a ghost, let it pass on. Rule number 3, check the details. Real figures come with serial numbers, QR codes, UV marks. They have proper branding, spelled correctly, with packaging that looks designed instead of photocopied. Count the teeth, count the tags. In the world of collectibles, boring is beautiful. And rule number 4, pace yourself. Don't panic buy. Scarcity is a marketing spell, not a law of physics. There will always be another drop, another design, another queue. The toy companies are not running out of plastic. Trust me. Because here's the sneaky thing. Hype thrives on urgency. It tells you, if you don't act now, you'll regret it forever. but forever is a long time, and regret usually lasts until the next release date. So give yourself permission to step back. If you missed a drop, you missed a drop. If the price on resale makes your stomach tighten, let it go. Better no goblin on your shelf than a fake one leaking fumes in your living room. And remember, you're allowed to enjoy the weird little creature without treating it like a life or death mission. Collecting is a hobby, not a haunted contract. Practical checklists beat smoky rituals. A UV lamp and a calm mind will protect you better than any sage bundle. Because in the end, the real trick is not avoiding demons. It's avoiding drama. Let's float a dangerous idea. Not supernatural, not religious, just psychological, with a whiff of the occult. What if attention is calories? Every time you look at something, talk about it, argue about it, you feed it. Not literally, not in the summoning circle way, but in the way symbols fatten up inside our heads until they feel alive. This is where the word egregore comes in. It sounds exotic, crossword puzzle chic, but the idea is simple. An egregore is a thought form, a collective creature built from attention. Old occultists in the 19th century described it as a group spirit that emerges when enough people focus on the same symbol, the same ritual, the same belief. Imagine medieval pilgrims gathering around a relic. They light candles, sing chants, stare at the same bone in a glass case. After a while, the relic isn't just an object. It feels charged, heavier than its material. That heaviness is the egregore. Now fast forward to TikTok. Millions of people staring at the same haunted toy video, typing Paimon in the comments, tagging their friends, joking but not joking. The more attention it gets, the more real it feels. The toy hasn't changed. It's still vinyl, still 9 teeth, but the field around it has changed. The collective imagination has inflated it. That's why some people swear they feel a presence. Because in a way, there is one. Not supernatural, but social. A crowd's worth of attention packed into a tiny figure. Your brain feels that weight, interprets it as energy. That's egregore light. The metaphor works in smaller ways too. Ever notice how a houseplant looks healthier when you keep checking on it? Not because it knows, but because you water it more. Move it to the light. Notice the tiny changes. Attention makes it thrive. Now swap the plant for your feed. Every glance is a drop of water. Every comment is sunlight. You don't just watch the Labubu trend. You cultivate it. And attention doesn't just make things feel alive, it makes them spread. A meme with 10 comments feels like a joke. A meme with 10,000 comments feels like folklore. Same picture, same grin, but the calories of attention have turned it into a feast. Here's the irony. The more you panic about the haunting, the more you're feeding it. The more you fight in the comments, the bigger the egregore swells. Folklore isn't built by believers. It's built by the energy of any attention, positive or negative. A rage stitch and a fan cam are the same meal. And that's why these toy hauntings work. They give you something to feed, even if it's just a joke. The object is a canvas, the community is the brush, and attention is the paint. So the question isn't, is the toy haunted? The question is, how many calories have we fed it? Because the less you look, the thinner it gets. And the more you look, the more it breathes. Which is why the next experiment isn't about demons at all. It's about withdrawal. Can you starve the egregore? So you've heard the theory. Attention is calories. Which means if you want to see whether this so-called haunting has teeth, or just teeth painted on, you have to try starving it. Not with fire, not with sage, not with holy water, with boredom. Enter the 3-day draw diet. Protocol is simple. Put the figure away. Not smashed, not burned, not dramatically banished on TikTok. Just into a drawer. Close it. Leave it. 3 days, that's it. Day 0 prep matters. Tell your future self where you hid the thing. Otherwise, on day 1, you'll end up tearing your flat apart in a panicked scavenger hunt, which is exactly the opposite of calm. Now, here's what happens. Day 1. Phantom pings. You feel it immediately. The itch. The urge to check the shelf. Open the drawer, peek at the hashtag. You'll swear the figure is still in the room. You'll catch it in the corner of your eye, except it isn't there. That's not demons. That's selective attention. The same thing that makes you hear your phone buzz when it didn't. It's your brain replaying the calories it got used to. Day 2. House. Sounds like house. Something shifts. The creaks of your apartment stop sounding like horror movie sound design. The fridge goes back to being a fridge, not a demon's whisper. Your kitchen stops auditioning for a paranormal short film. The silence feels less like a threat, more like silence. You remember what ordinary sounds like. Day 3. Calm, then clarity. The object becomes object again. Plastic. Cute grotesque. Maybe even funny. You can like it without it renting a room in your head. You realize the haunting was never in the toy. It was in the spotlight you kept shining on it. Remove the light. Remove the ghost. And here's the best part. Testimonials from people who've tried this draw diet say the same thing. Better sleep. Fewer jitters. Still cute. Still collectible. But no longer breathing down their neck. Turns out, peace scales too. It's a little science experiment you can run in your own bedroom. If less attention equals less presence, you've just put a haunting on airplane mode. And that's a powerful lesson. Sometimes the strongest exorcism is a sock drawer. But if the haunting fades when the spotlight fades, then why do these stories refuse to die? Why do new ghost rumors sprout the moment the old ones quiet down? For that, we need to zoom out. Not into the drawer, but into the culture that keeps refilling it. The first day is the hardest. You've took the goblin away, drawer closed, out of sight. Rationally, you know it's there, doing nothing. But your brain swears it's still in the room. You feel the phantom pings, the same way you sometimes feel your phone buzz in your pocket when it hasn't. Every creak of the floorboard, every flicker in the corner of your vision whispers, check the drawer. It's selective attention at work. The more you try not to think about something, the louder it gets. Even scrolling feels haunted. Videos you'd never notice suddenly feature goblins. Posts about demonic toys pop up in your feed like weeds, and nothing's changed. The algorithm's just serving what you trained it to. But to your jittery brain, it feels like possession. And that's the lesson of day 1. A haunting doesn't live in the toy. It lives in the expectation. Day 2. House. Sounds like house. By the second day, something shifts. The soundtrack of your home resets. That creak in the hallway, just wood expanding, the hum of the fridge, not a spectral whisper, just an overworked motor. The tap dripping at 3 a.m. Annoying, yes. Apocalyptic, no. Your kitchen stops auditioning for a paranormal short film. Your bedroom stops feeling like a set for found footage horror. The ordinary starts to sound ordinary again. And with that return to baseline, you notice how much of the haunting was your own heightened state. Fear tuned every noise into a jump scare. Calm tunes it back down. Day 3. Calm, then clarity. On the third day, The silence feels natural. You might even forget the drawer for a while, and when you finally open it, you don't find a demon. You find vinyl. The grin is still crooked. The ears still too big. But it's just design again, not destiny. You can hold it without your chest tightening. You can like it without it renting psychic real estate in your head. That's the payoff of the drawer diet. The object shrinks back to object. The haunting dissolves once the attention does. And here's the kicker. Once you've felt that reset, you can never fully unlearn it. You've run the experiment. You've proven to yourself that less spotlight means less shadow. Congratulations. You didn't just survive the haunting, you debugged it. But of course, if the fear fades when you stop feeding it, there's still one big question. Why does the story keep coming back? For that, we have to zoom out, past the toy, past the drawer, and into the way communities build myths out of pixels. Every generation invents its own ghosts. Not because the old ones stop working, but because new platforms need new costumes. In the Middle Ages, people whispered about succubi in the rafters and demons lurking at crossroads. In the 19th century, it was seances, raps on tables, flickering candles. In the 20th, haunted dolls and Ouija boards got the spotlight. And now, a vinyl goblin with an awkward grin beamed into your feed in 720p. That's the thing about folklore. It isn't frozen. It shapeshifts. It wears whatever mask the culture is already staring at. Today's fear doesn't look like parchment grimoires or black cats. Today's fear looks like shaky vertical video with a caption in white font. It moved by itself. And TikTok is the perfect breeding ground. Why? Because it gives folklore subtitles. You don't just hear a story, you see it. You scroll it. You remix it. A medieval monk needed a lifetime to spread a demon legend across Europe. A teenager with Wi-Fi can do it before lunch. The word haunted survives because it's efficient. You don't need a treatise on the uncanny valley or design psychology. You just say, haunted. Everyone knows what you mean. It's an elegant shortcut. This thing feels bigger than me, heavier than it should, stranger than just plastic. And there's comfort in that. A haunting, in a weird way, is flattering. It says your life is interesting enough to attract a plot line, that you, yes you, are the main character in a folklore reboot. It's also funny how we recycle the same shapes. The faces in clouds, pareidolia, the voice in the floorboards, confirmation bias, the suspense of a blind box, variable reward, but dress them up as folklore, and suddenly they feel profound again. That's Folklore 2.0. Recycled fears in new packaging. A plushie becomes a demon. A beep from a vending machine becomes liturgy. A shaky handheld video becomes a seance. Same psychology, shinier interface. And if you zoom out far enough, you see the real ghost. Not the toy, not the demon names, but the human need to keep telling ourselves that something is just beyond the curtain. Because folklore isn't about truth. It's about resonance. It's the cultural weather. Storms of meaning rolling through each new platform, raining fear, humor, and memes. And Labubu? Labubu is just the latest umbrella. Once a trend has enough momentum, the internet does what it always does. It invents the shorthand joke. For Labubu, that joke became, everyone who owns one is psycho. You've seen it 1,000 times before. Every fandom, every craze gets its punchline. People who drink pumpkin spice, basic. People with cats, witches, people into astrology, red flags apparently. None of it's meant as serious anthropology, it's comedy's favourite spice. Exaggeration. Sprinkle a little hyperbole, and suddenly you've got a meme. The Labubu joke worked because the toy already looked unhinged. That crooked grin, those two big ears, it radiates unwell. So if you bought one, well, you must share its vibe, right? Congratulations, you're psycho by association. And the internet loves that kind of lazy symmetry. It's quick, it's recognizable, and it invites endless riffs. People posting selfies with their goblin plush captioned, "Me and my emotional support psychosis." Others making tier lists of which variants are the least stable. It's absurd, but it's easy. The danger, of course, is when someone forgets it's a joke. Hyperbole is hilarious until it sneaks into a diagnosis column. That's the shadow side of meme culture. Exaggerations that start as haha can harden into stigma if you're not paying attention. But the smarter way to read it is this. It's folklore compressing itself into a one-liner. Once a haunting gets too big, too sprawling, the culture needs a gag to keep it portable. Instead of explaining a Labubu lore for 10 minutes, you just say, everyone with one is psycho. Boom. Instant laugh. Instant understanding. And that's the power of memes. They don't describe reality. They decorate it, bend it, scribble on it in neon marker. No one with a goblin on their shelf is actually losing their grip on sanity. They're just part of a collective in-joke that makes the hype easier to digest. Because if folklore is the storm, memes are the lightning flashes. Quick, bright, gone in a second, but powerful enough to light up the whole landscape. So no, owning a Labubu doesn't make you psycho. Owning one just makes you visible in the joke cycle. And the internet will never skip a chance to turn visibility into comedy. Here's a universal human truth. We're wired to see patterns. It's not optional, it's survival. Our ancestors needed to spot the tiger in the grass, the snake in the leaves, the rustle that meant danger. The problem? That wiring never switched off. And now we're using it on vinyl goblins. Take pareidolia. That's the fancy word for seeing faces where there aren't any. Clouds shaped like bunnies. Toast that looks like Jesus. Electrical sockets that stare at you like they know your browsing history. It's the same trick your brain plays when you stare too long at Labubu and suddenly swear the grin just widened a little. It didn't. Your neurons are just overachievers. Then there's confirmation bias. Once you decide the toy is creepy, or worse, haunted, you'll find proof everywhere. A shadow moves, it was the goblin. A glass tips over, the goblin. You stub your toe on the coffee table, goblin again. The brain loves to be right, even if it has to edit reality to make it happen. And don't forget variable reward, the slot machine of daily life. Open enough blind boxes, refresh enough hashtags, and you train your brain to expect a surprise. That's why people check the fridge 4 times, hoping something new materializes. Spoiler. It never does. But the suspense is addictive, so you keep opening the door. Labubu is the same. Each drop, each box, each rumor is another spin of the wheel. What's wild is that knowing these tricks doesn't make the magic vanish. It just gives you the remote. You can still laugh at the socket face, still feel the fridge suspense, still jump at a shaky cam goblin video. The difference is, you know why. You've spotted the mechanism. And that's empowering. Folklore works best when it's invisible. Once you see the strings, the puppet loses its bite. Instead of demonic haunting, you've got pareidolia plus confirmation bias plus a dash of slot machine dopamine. Still fascinating, still funny, just not supernatural. So the next time you feel spooked by a grin with 9 teeth, remember, Your brain is pattern-seeking like a pro, which is impressive, yes, but it also means you're basically hallucinating on purpose and calling it culture. The good news? Once you know you're hallucinating together, it feels less like madness and more like a hobby. And speaking of hobbies, what do you do if you want to keep the toy but lose the haunting? For that, we need a toolkit. So you've learned the trick. Attention is calories, which means the real haunting isn't supernatural, it's you, doom scrolling your own fear into existence. The next logical question is, how do you stop feeding the thing without throwing it out the window? Step 1, mute the keyword. Seriously, 1 week without Labubu in your feed. Block the hashtag, mute the trending sound, skip the stitches. It's not denial, it's a diet. Like cutting sugar, but for your midbrain. And just like sugar, the first days feel rough. You crave the fix. You itch to peak. But the silence that follows, that's the algorithm going cold turkey. Step 2, don't rage stitch. It's tempting. You see a video calling the toy literally Satan's Furby, and your fingers itch to clap back. Don't. A rage stitch is still a stitch. You're not debunking. You're promoting. Silence is the internet's version of a power cut. We mistake it for peace, but honestly, peace is underrated. Step 3, schedule calm like you schedule chaos. Everyone plans the drop, the unboxing, the frantic refresh of the resale app, but almost nobody plans their recovery. Make it boring on purpose. Put 30 minutes of drawer organizing, bread watching, or plant watering in your calendar. Rituals don't have to involve incense. Sometimes they involve socks. And here's the paradox. The less you feed the frenzy, the more control you feel. The toy shrinks back to being a toy. The feed calms down, and your brain stops rehearsing for a horror short. Because that's the quiet superpower, knowing you could look, but choosing not to. That's how you starve an egregore without even breaking a sweat. And once you've got that calm, the real magic happens. You start to remember that collecting can be fun. That joy doesn't need guilt stapled to it. Which brings us to the next secret. You're actually allowed to like things. Here's the scandalous truth nobody tells you on TikTok. You're allowed to like things. Full stop. Not ironically, not apologetically, not sandwiched between 10 disclaimers about how, yeah, but it's problematic. Just like it. Ownership doesn't equal obsession. Buying a Labubu doesn't mean you've signed a demonic pact or joined a cult. It means you bought a piece of plastic with a personality. And if that sparks joy, congratulations. You're a human being with a hobby, not a headline. The guilt comes from the hype machine. It whispers, if you're not collecting the rarest variant, you're a fake fan. Or if you buy one, you're feeding the algorithm's demon child. It's the same shame spiral you see everywhere. People apologizing for liking pop music, or romance novels, or pumpkin spice. The internet loves to turn joy into a crime scene. But let's zoom out. Think about other ugly cute things we've normalized. Pugs, blobfish, that one cousin's baby photos. None of them are classically beautiful. All of them are loved anyway. Labubu just happens to come with resale value and spooky TikToks. And the trick is this. Joy doesn't need permission slips. You don't need the comments to approve your shelf, your taste, or your coping mechanisms. If holding the figure makes your chest lift instead of tighten, that's enough. That's the test. Besides, joy without guilt is actually good for the culture. It sets a counterweight. In a feed full of rage stitches and haunted lore, one calm post, hey, it's weird, but I love mine, can ripple further than you expect. Calm is contagious. It's folklore too, just in softer colours. So here's the mantra. Like it. Don't marry it. Don't worship it. Don't turn it into your entire identity. Just like it. Because hobbies are allowed to be boring, quiet, personal, and in an age where every object is either a demon or a dopamine trap, boring but joyful might be the most radical stance you can take. So yes, you can put the goblin on your desk and smile at it. You don't need incense. You don't need to defend yourself in the comments. You just need to breathe and remember. Joy is not a crime scene. After all the haunted whispers, the demon names, the shaky cam horror shorts, here's the part nobody ever makes a viral video about. The boring bit. The checklist. Because for every story about a Labubu that allegedly moved on its own, there are 10 about Labubus that just broke, or smelled weird, or arrived with the wrong number of teeth. And that's not supernatural, that's supply chain. So here's the quickest exorcism you'll ever perform. Count the teeth. 9. Always 9. If yours has 8, 10, or looks like someone glued them in after a night out, congratulations. You're holding a counterfeit, not a curse. Next, tags and packaging. The logo should be crisp, spelled correctly, not wobbling like it fell off Microsoft Paint. Official figures come with serials, QR codes, sometimes UV stamps. Fakes don't bother. They're built to cash in, not to pass checks. Retailer. Official channels, licensed stores, or trusted secondhand collectors. Not DM me king on a resale app. If the seller's bio looks like it was written by a fortune cookie, maybe don't wire them £300. And the final test? Smell. Yes, smell. Real ones smell like nothing. Fakes smell like regret, usually mixed with petrol. If your haunting includes a chemical tang, it's not Beelzebub. It's cheap resin. See? Boring is beautiful. Because boring means safe. Boring means authentic. Boring means you can put the goblin back on your shelf without wondering whether it's plotting your downfall. And that's the quiet lesson buried under all the hype. Authenticity is dull. No neon captions, no demon names, no shaky footage, just calm, predictable, slightly overpriced vinyl, which, honestly, is all it was meant to be. Let's talk about numbers. Not the boring kind you hated in school, but the kind that breathe. Because once a mascot becomes a market, the graph stops being neutral. It starts telling stories. And those stories? They get under your skin faster than any folklore. Take resale prices. 1 week, a figure is £30. Next week, it's 300. That's not just economics. That's theatre. Every upward spike feels like destiny. Every crash feels like betrayal. People screenshot the charts like they're stock traders, narrating the saga of goblins with the same solemnity others reserve for Bitcoin. And the internet eats that up. A graph that goes up becomes proof that this is alive. Not alive like breathing, but alive like moving. Numbers that pulse give the illusion of agency. Suddenly the mascot isn't just a toy. It's a character in its own soap opera. And here's the kicker. The feedback loop. Stories print money, and money prints stories. A viral haunting video pushes demand. Demand pushes resale. Resale pushes more hype. Hype generates new stories about hauntings, scams, demons, and cues. Round and round it spins until you're not sure whether you're watching folklore or a financial instrument. It's folklore with receipts. And receipts, in the age of screenshots, are a genre in themselves. You don't just tell your friend, I got one. You post your order confirmation like a trophy. Proof of purchase becomes proof of belonging. That's why numbers with a pulse matter. They make the intangible tangible. You can't measure folklore, but you can measure sales. And once sales take on a life of their own, the folklore doesn't need to justify itself anymore. The story is baked into the curve. And the irony? The curve is just us. Refreshing, clicking, bidding, talking. The numbers aren't alive. We are. But put them on a graph, and suddenly they look like a heartbeat. And people can't resist a heartbeat. Which brings us to the softer side of the ledger. Not just graphs and markets, but what happens when people stop feeding the fear. Because it turns out, calm scales too. If hype is built on testimonies of terror, I swear it giggled, my room went cold, I saw it move, then calm deserves its own testimonials too. And they exist. Quietly, tucked into comments that don't go viral, in forums without dramatic lighting, people have been posting their draw diet results. And they sound refreshingly boring. One collector wrote, I put mine in the closet for a week. By day 3, I forgot it was there. When I pulled it out again, it was just cute. I actually liked it more. Another said, I muted the hashtag. I slept better. My flat felt normal. I still love my Labubu, but it's not breathing down my neck anymore. And my personal favourite? Turns out my house was just creaky. The goblin wasn't haunted. The plumbing was. It's almost funny how calm reports don't travel as far. The algorithm is allergic to peace, rage, fear, obsession that spreads. Quiet satisfaction, not so much. But that doesn't make it less powerful. It just makes it less noisy. And here's the real twist. Peace scales too. One calm post can ripple. You share a photo of your Labubu on a desk with the caption, still weird, still mine, still fine, and suddenly other people admit they feel the same. They were just waiting for someone to go first. That's the folklore we don't talk about enough. The folklore of chill. The whispered consensus that it's okay to own a toy without making it a lifestyle. Okay to laugh at a meme without believing it. Okay to step out of the queue once in a while. It's not dramatic. It doesn't have jump scares. But it's culture just the same. And sometimes it's the antidote to all the noise. Because folklore isn't only built on fear, it's also built on relief. And that relief sets the stage for the real closing lesson. Treat the feed like weather. Informative, not sovereign. Here's the final thought. Treat the feed like weather. Check it, sure. Note the clouds, the storms, the rare sunny patches. But don't confuse it with destiny. When the timeline says haunted, it isn't prophecy. It's drizzle. And drizzle passes. Because at the end of the day, Labubu isn't witchcraft. It's vinyl. Vinyl with teeth, yes. Vinyl with folklore taped to its back, sure. But still just vinyl. You're free to grin back at it, or tuck it in a drawer, or sell it, or line it up on a shelf with 20 others. None of those choices summon demons. They just summon opinions. Keep the plush if it makes you smile. Drop it if it doesn't. But keep your calm either way. Because calm is the only thing the algorithm doesn't know how to monetize. So here's your closing mantra. Only plush until you feed it. Choose what you feed, and that's the whole weather report. So, sleepless rabble. You made it all the way through the saga of Labubu. Ugly cute gremlins, haunted TikToks, counterfeit nightmares, and the occasional cameo from a medieval demon king. If nothing else, you've now got party trivia for life. 9 teeth equals real, 8 teeth equals scam, and if someone whispers Paimon at a toy shelf, that's not witchcraft. It's marketing. Remember, the feed is weather. Informative, not sovereign. Let it rain memes. Let it thunder resale prices, but don't let it convince you you're being haunted by vinyl. Keep the plush if it makes you grin. Let it go if it doesn't. But either way, keep your calm. If you enjoyed this little culture autopsy, you know what to do. Hit like, drop a sub, and if you want to help me keep poking holes in internet folklore, you can toss a coin to kofi.com/napmax. And tell me in the comments, what's the weirdest haunted object story you've heard online? Bonus points if it involves IKEA furniture. This is Napmax Sleep Stories. Or, let's be honest, Screen Break Stories, where we dissect hype until it looks less like witchcraft and more like weather. Sleep well, scroll less, feed wisely.